Set sail for the distant lands! Let the tiger fly!
And a naval campaign so unusual that historians still call it one of a kind, not because of its scale, but because of what it interrupted. For centuries before 1025, India and Southeast Asia had barely known war between them. Buddhist monks, Hindu priests, and Tamil merchants moved constantly across the Bay of Bengal, carrying scripture, temple architecture, and trading networks rather than armies. The kingdom of Srivijaya, based around modern-day Palembang in Sumatra, grew wealthy, controlling the Strait of Malacca from popular memory entirely. This is the story of Rajendra Chola I. And a naval campaign so unusual that historians still call it one of a kind, not because of its scale, but because of what it interrupted. For centuries before 1025, India and Southeast Asia had barely known war between them. Buddhist monks, Hindu priests, and Tamil merchants moved constantly across the Bay of Bengal, carrying scripture, temple architecture, and trading networks rather than armies. The kingdom of Srivijaya, based around modern-day Palembang in Sumatra, grew wealthy, controlling the Strait of Malacca, the narrow sea lane every ship from India to China had to pass through. For generations, Srivijaya and the Chola dynasty of South India maintained warm relations. Chola kings even funded Buddhist monasteries on Srivijayan soil. This was not a rivalry building toward inevitable conflict. It was, by most accounts, genuine partnership. So when Rajendra Chola, having already extended Chola power as far as the Ganges in the north, turned his fleet towards Southeast Asia, it caught the region by surprise. Historians still debate exactly why. Some point to Srivijaya restricting Indian merchants' access to lucrative trade with Song dynasty China, a direct threat to Chola commercial interests built over generations. Others argue it was simple imperial ambition, a king who had already earned the title Gangaikonda Cholan, bringer of the Ganges, and wanted an equally unprecedented conquest across the sea to match it. A smaller number of historians suggest both motives work together, commercial rivalry providing the justification and imperial pride providing the will to act on it. The inscriptions Rajendra left behind, boastful by nature and carved to celebrate his own reign, never actually explain his reasoning in his own words. They only describe the result in the confident language of a king who expected to be remembered as a conqueror rather than questioned as one. And the result was overwhelming. Chola forces struck not just the Srivijayan capital, but a chain of at least 12 other port cities across Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula, hitting multiple targets in rapid succession before any coordinated defense could form. Kadaram, a wealthy trading center known for its iron production, fell. Kadaram, a wealthy trading center known for its iron production, fell. So did ports the inscriptions call Malayur and Ilangasogam. The Srivijayan king, Sangrama Vijaya Tungavarman, was captured alive. Rajendra's own temple inscription at Tanjavur describes seizing the king's war elephants, his accumulated treasure, and something the inscription calls the Vidyadhara Torana, a jeweled ceremonial gate torn from the entrance to Srivijaya's capital and hauled back to India as a trophy of conquest. For a kingdom that had never before mounted an overseas military campaign at this distance, it was a staggering logistical achievement. Modern historians studying the era still aren't entirely certain how a South Indian Navy managed to project that kind of force across open ocean in the 11th century, coordinating a strike against more than a dozen separate targets simultaneously. What happened after the victory is where the story gets murkier and where popular retellings tend to claim more certainty than the evidence supports. Some accounts describe Chola dominance over the region persisting for decades, pointing to later Chinese records referring to a kingdom they called Chola Srivijaya, along with tribute missions from Kedah to the Chinese court well into the following century. Other historians read the same evidence differently, arguing the Cholas never intended permanent occupation at all, that this was a raid meant to demonstrate power and seize wealth, not build an empire, and that the fleet sailed home once its objectives were met. Both readings can't be fully true at once, and the sources are not detailed enough to settle it definitively. What is clear is that Srivijaya itself never fully recovered. Within years, references to the old Srivijayan state fade from the historical record, replaced by successor kingdoms in the same territory. Whether the Chola raid caused that decline directly or simply arrived at a moment when Srivijaya was already weakening remains an open question among historians of the region. There's a reason this story rarely appears outside specialist history circles, despite being one of the most ambitious naval campaigns of the medieval world. It complicates a simpler narrative many people carry about India's history, one built almost entirely around land empires, invading armies crossing mountain passes, and dynasties ruling from inland capitals. A Tamil king sending warships across open ocean to conquer distant harbour cities doesn't fit that picture. So for centuries it mostly went untold, but the inscriptions survive, carved in stone at Tanjavur nearly 1,000 years ago, still describing ships that dispatched, in Rajendra's own words, into the midst of the rolling sea. They are, in their way, the same kind of historical evidence as the bronze plaques and royal archives of other forgotten kingdoms elsewhere in the world. Physical proof that a story most people have never heard actually happened. Whether or not modern memory chose to keep it, if Indian history is still commonly taught as a story of invasions arriving by land, this is the reminder that at least once it sailed the other way.